So great. As I was saying, my name is Ross Yelsey. I'm an assistant director of admission and marketing at Columbia Journalism School, and I'm an alum of the school as well. I'm an alum of the MA program, so I can speak with some experience too about the experience as a student at the school. So I'm happy to answer questions about that later. And I'm really happy so many people joined us today to learn more about our programs. And what we'll do is I will go over our different programs, kind of in some good detail so you get a sense on the differences between our Master of Science programs. We have several programs within our Master of Science umbrella, and then also look at the Master of Arts program, which I know sounds kind of interchangeable with MS, but talk more about the differences between those programs and who they're best suited for. And then we'll briefly talk about our PhD in communications program too, which is more of a degree intended for people who want to go into academic careers, not professional journalism careers. And then at that point, I'll be happy to take some questions. So I'll open the chat up at that point. So if you have questions about the programs, I will be happy to, maybe make some clarifications, give some more details about certain opportunities in any of our programs really. And then at that point, after those questions, I'll move into the application for a bit and just go over some of the essential things that we're looking for in the application as you might be preparing that in the coming weeks. So you just know what to expect and look out for, and things that we'll be looking for in the application as we go to the review period next month. So great. I will start and share my screen in a second here so people can look at our programs with a little bit more of a tangible sense of what the programs look like in terms of text and all of that. So one second. Great. So here we are. Just going to share my screen and go here. So this is Columbia Journalism School, the building. This is called Pulitzer Hall here. So people might have seen this in some of our admissions materials before, might have visited campus. This is where the Columbia Journalism School is housed. It's right in the heart of Columbia's campus at 116th and Broadway, basically in Manhattan. It's a great building. It's all 8 stories of it are devoted to our journalism school. So it's all faculty and students who are doing journalism all together. Here we have all of our classrooms, all of our offices, all of our kind of research centers, all of our libraries and study spaces are all here. So it's a really great place right in the middle of campus where everyone is working together in the same endeavor of doing journalism. Different types, of course. We have, people doing audio in the audio studios, people doing video in our broadcast studio. We have people doing data journalism and all sorts of things, but it's all happening in the same building. So it's a really nicely tight-knit community here. So I'll go forward here and give you a sense on just what the school environment is like. As you can see here, we have a lot of kind of activity going on in the school. This is graduation recently of Columbia Journalism graduates. Down here, you can see some of our students talking with our professors on the steps outside of Pulitzer Hall. That's a very common sight. Even today, I was walking into campus and saw people, talking with their faculty members about projects they're working on. So it's a very collaborative, kind of open environment, both inside the building and when the weather is nice, as it is right now, outside. And of course, this is Alma Mater, the statue that's very iconic on Columbia's campus, which is just maybe a minute's walk away from Columbia Journalism School. And you can see in the bottom right corner too, this is a cafe, Joe's Cafe, which is right next to the journalism school. So it's a great spot for people to get caffeinated, get some food, and talk over their projects with their classmates or with their faculty right next door to campus. So there's a lot going on just right in the very close vicinity of this particular building and where I'm sitting right now. Great. And then you can see some of what it's like to be a member of the Columbia Journalism School student community. You can see people kind of enjoying the holidays here on our college walk. You can see people enjoying sitting out on the green right next to our building in the middle of campus. We have the Pulitzer Prizes, which are awarded here every spring. So it's something that all students can take part in and kind of be a part of that event when they're announcing the winners and the finalists for those prizes. And up here, you can see an event that we have that's hosted by Columbia Journalism Review, which is housed in our journalism school too, which was talking about disinformation last year. And we have lots of events that are open to students, of course, throughout the year about all sorts of high-level, topics in journalism, whether it comes to international journalism, domestic journalism, local journalism, issues about representation and inclusion in newsrooms. A lot is going on like every day here. So just this is a little photo version of what you can kind of expect in terms of the activity on campus. So now we'll move on to what this presentation is all about, really, which is about the degree programs we have at Columbia Journalism School and how to get a sense on which one might be the right fit for each student. Everyone has a slightly different path they might want to go on when they come to our school, and that's great. And we have programs that are really intended for people with different ambitions. So we'll go over the Master of Science program, which has full and part-time options. That's our kind of foundational journalism degree. That's for people from all sorts of backgrounds. It doesn't necessarily have to be from people who have done journalism significantly before, but for people who might be career changers, people who have studied different things before coming to journalism school, but want to gain all the essential skills to do professional journalism, whether that's writing, photography, videography, broadcast skills, podcasting skills, investigative skills. All of that's going to be housed in the Master of Science program and is really intended for people with a lot of different ambitions. It's a very big tent. So we talk to people every day who want to go in the MS program. Some want to become international correspondents, some want to become podcasters, some want to become like TV news anchors. Some people want to do more data-driven news stories. It's the perfect degree for all of those people. So that's the great thing about that program. And for people who have very specific interests, we have 2 specializations beyond the broader MS curriculum that's available in the MS. One is in documentary journalism, which I can talk about a bit more in detail later, which is for people who want to do a short documentary as their real capstone and want to work in the world of documentary films, especially reporting-driven documentary films. And we also have an investigative program as well, specialization for people who want to do investigative accountability journalism, want to expose wrongdoing through investigative techniques like doing information requests, interviews, all of that. So that's for that particular kind of student who knows that's really what they want to focus on. So we have 2 programs for people who have that already in mind, that they know what they really want to pursue. But for people who aren't entirely sure or want to maybe dabble in several things, then the MS, the broader program would be a good fit. We also have an MS in data journalism program, a relatively new program at our school. It's in its, I think, 3rd year this year. And that's a great program for people who want to do kind of a mix of reporting training as well as computational training to be able to do data-driven news stories. So using data as a core source of your reporting. So that's for people who, maybe don't have a lot of background in computation and haven't done a lot of data-driven work necessarily. It's not required that you know a lot about how to do that. You'll learn from scratch really how to do both really high-level reporting and high-level data work. And this is something that we see is very in demand right now in terms of newsrooms around the world, really. People who can both make sense of data and tell stories with data without a lot of assistance, so they can dive into that on their own with the training that we provide. And we also have something that's a little similar in some respects, but has a different type of kind of outcome for its graduates. And that's our dual degree in journalism and computer science. And that's for people who really want to get basically 2 years of training, both in our journalism school and over in the computer science department of the School of Engineering here at Columbia. And that's for people who want to do, maybe R&D work in a newsroom. So you're going to learn a lot of journalism skills, but also a lot of computational skills, whether it's machine learning, natural text processing, all of that in order to maybe build applications and software that newsrooms might use to better, do reporting and also to share reporting through different types of interactive platforms, different types of apps that people can use to get more news and more, interesting ways to deliver news to people. So that's that program. And that's for people who already have some computational background, either a computer science minor or major, or have done, linear algebra or statistics and have that skill set coming into it, because it is a high level computer science graduate program in addition to a journalism program for people interested in that particular path. And then we're going to get into the Master of Arts program, which is a program that is different in the sense that it does, require that its applicants have a background in journalism already, because it assumes you already know the essentials of reporting. And so that means that you're coming into the MA program knowing how to kind of get sources, report multi-source stories, know how to structure a story, and who really want to go deeper now and want to do more ambitious reporting. And you get the chance in this particular program to go into one of 4 concentrations, and you'll have really great mentorship in terms of how to tell better stories, deeper stories, more interesting stories in this particular area. And those areas are arts and culture, business and economics, politics, and science. So you would choose one program concentration to apply to, and you don't necessarily have to have a background in that area of journalism already, as long as you have journalistic skills that are, at a good high level already. You could definitely change paths and go into a field you haven't done much reporting in before if you want to, and you'll gain a lot of great experience. If you say science is new to you, you can get totally great training, but you don't necessarily have to come into it as a science journalist already. And finally, we have our Ph.D. in communications, which is a program, as I mentioned before, is for people with an academic kind of ambition. They want to become professors. They want to become researchers. It's not a professional degree in journalism, where it's like if you have a Ph.D. in communications, you'll be a really high-level journalist in a newsroom. That's not how it works, really. It's really for people who want to spend many years here doing research on communications, whether it's looking at communications and media through a historical lens or a sociological lens, but want to become academics. So that's a great program for that particular type of student who wants to not really work as a journalist, but wants to work as a professor or a researcher. And now I will break down the Master of Science programs a little bit more. I mentioned already, so we have the full-time program, we call it comprehensive or broader program. That's the Master of Science program. And that includes all the different types of areas of study that you might want to go into if you're coming into this program without a lot of journalism experience and want to get all the essentials. So the MS program will build up all your essential skills and also let you customize it to kind of follow your own particular path in terms of training you want to get. And that's the only program we have available in a full and a part-time program. So I know that we get questions about, can I work while I'm studying at Columbia? And the answer generally, if you're doing a full-time program, is no, because all of our programs are very intense in terms of the workload and in terms of the things you're going to be reporting on. It's going to be very unpredictable, your day-to-day schedule. But for people who are US citizens or have work authorization in the US, or permanent residents, or have a visa that allows them to work in the US already, then we do have a part-time version of the Master of Science program that would go over 5 semesters rather than 2. And so if you're interested in that particular opportunity, you can check in with us or apply to that program specifically. If you're an international student and are looking into that, generally you cannot do the part-time program unless you already have a visa that gives you authorization to work in the US. If you have a student visa, you can't do the Master of Science in a part-time variety. And so, as I mentioned, we have the investigative specialization and the documentary specialization with the MS. Those are both only available for full-time students. So if you want to do those paths, that would be a full-time commitment. And I'll talk more about how those curriculum lay out in a minute too. And the data program as well is only full-time, and that is a 3-semester program, as is the documentary program. So they have 1 additional semester added to them where you're doing more work in that particular area because we feel like you're learning a lot of skills and it takes a little bit more time to really develop those to their full potential before you finish your degree. And the dual degree is, again, full-time only, and that is basically 2 years, 2 academic years, fall and a spring, and then another fall and a spring. And you have courses that are shared both between the journalism school and the computer science department over the course of that degree program. And so to break down a little bit more about how the full-time MS curriculum will work for people interested in that program, basically I like to think of the full-time program's fall semester as the opportunity that students will have to really build their essential skills. So get all the skills that we feel like any graduate of our program should have to be successful in the job market as professional journalists and kind of any kind of endeavor they go into. So those skills for us are really reporting skills, writing skills, and multimedia skills. So you're going to get fundamental skills built up in the fall. And so the reporting module is the class that you will begin any MS program with. That's usually a 7-week course where you're going to be assigned a small group, basically usually a 15-person seminar with a professor. Each student will have their own seminar. We'll break it up with different faculty members teaching those seminars, and each professor will teach that seminar a slightly different way, but the essentials of it is always the same, which is students will really go out into the city, around New York City, to different boroughs to get stories on different topics, different deadlines, different lengths, to really get a lot of experiences doing shoe leather reporting, and basically learn reporting by doing it. We don't sit around in the classroom very much in our MS program just talking about journalism in kind of an abstract way. We do talk about some big picture ethical questions, legal questions, but we also look at other people's work and kind of look at stories that have been very successful or very engaging and look at what they're doing in those stories. So you analyze some stories, but really you're learning by doing stories yourself and then workshopping those with your classmates and with your faculty member. So we don't really sit in the classroom for hours and hours. We really will have opportunities for people to go out, get on the subway, get on the bus, get on their bike, walk out and go to some neighborhood and do storytelling pretty much every day of the week. So it's a really great way to feel like you're getting the experience of a reporter from day one and having clips and bylines and work to show for yourself, really starting in the first week of classes and just going forward. You're going to have a lot of professional level clips from each class because we're going to expect you to go out and basically do stories as your work for the class, as opposed to say a research paper about journalism or an essay about journalism. You're doing journalism, so each thing you're going to do for that class will be a work of journalism, whether it's written or audio or video. So reporting is that first fundamental building block. And then we also have the written word class, which is a class that we feel like every student should take so we know that every graduate comes out of the journalism school as a strong writer. But we don't make people take just a cookie cutter class called written word that's just about writing in the abstract. We'll have a lot of choices for everybody. So you're going to have about 20 different options in terms of the type of writing you'd like to do. And every semester, every fall semester will have different options available, but some of those might include opinion writing for people who want to do that kind of writing. We'll have 800 words, which is a class about writing very concisely. Every story has to be no more than 800 words, which is sometimes a challenge, but you learn how to be very to the point in your writing in that class. We have classes like the rise and fall narrative, which is about charting an individual or an organization's rise and fall. That's taught currently by our dean, Steve Call. So it's a great way to learn from him about how to do that really well. We have narrative nonfiction, we have literary journalism, all sorts of things. So there's a lot of great ways to get some really good writing experience. And again, do all of the stories as assignments as a professional journalist. So you're going out doing writing, again, not a writing about journalism, but writing as a journalist for that class. So you'll have a lot of clips and experience from that class too. And basically in tandem with the written word, you're taking a class called Image and Sound, which is again is a kind of generic name. And so basically in that class, you'll have one of 4 options to choose. So within that rubric, it's either visual or sound related journalism. So it's audio, data, photo, or video. You can pick one of those options in the fall, and that's your chance to get your feet wet in one of those areas. So you'll be doing storytelling, learning all the essential technical skills to do, say, audio recording, adjusting levels on the mic and doing all the post, production mixing on the audio clip, learning how to, interview people or tell stories really well, write narration that works really well in an audio format or a video format, learn how to do photography with some really great aesthetic skills, or learn how to do some essential data work too, if you want to gain some, basic skills in that and learn if you're interested in that particular area of journalism. So basically the fall, as you can see, these are the kind of key building blocks of that, are about really building essentials. You'll come out of that knowing how to report, knowing how to write really well, and knowing how to use some multimedia techniques at a very cutting edge level that will be very competitive on the job market. You can show you can do this work at the skill level that all practicing journalists should be at after the fall semester. And then in the spring, I like to say, you have the chance to customize your MS degree. So if you're in the broader MS program, this is your chance to really go in the directions that might be interesting to you. And the nice thing about applying to the MS broader program is you don't have to apply to any specific track when you apply to it. If you don't want to apply to the documentary or the investigative specialization, it's pretty open-ended. So you can apply to the MS program and know for sure you want to become a broadcast journalist or a podcast journalist or a magazine writer or an investigative journalist or whatever, but you don't necessarily have to commit to that when you apply. So the nice thing is you might want to follow up on that by taking all the classes that would then follow suit with your original interest. But you can definitely change your mind and change your path as you go through the school too. So if you want to, pivot and say, like, I wanted to be a broadcast journalist when I joined, but I really like writing, so I want to take a magazine or a literary nonfiction class or a book writing class, it's definitely possible to do that. You don't have to feel like you're already in a certain kind of slotted track when you come to the school. And so in the spring, you'll be taking 2 classes we call seminar and production classes. Those are 15 weeks. So they basically run the full gamut of the spring semester from January to about mid-May. And you'll have a lot of options, like many options in terms of classes you'll want to take. You can choose 2 of them. And here's a couple options on the screen as you see right now. So one of them is covering religion, which is a great class if you want to learn how to cover, how people practice different religions in New York and globally as well. Sometimes that class will travel abroad over the spring break to some countries, including they've gone to Israel, Italy, India, Ireland before, a lot of I countries for some reason. And you can go and learn how to report and do a lot of great reporting about religious practice in areas that interest you, and just gaining really strong skill set asking maybe deeper questions about religion, more interesting angles about religious reporting in that class. And so that's a really cool opportunity. We also have arts criticism, which is a class for people who want to maybe go learn how to write about music or performances or books or movies in a more deep probing way with some more interesting context in terms of history and social context and all of that as well. And for people who want to maybe become broadcast journalists, as I mentioned, we have classes like Video Newsroom, which is a class where you basically will run a full-fledged, basically video news show every week. And that's a broadcast show where you're anchoring at our anchor desk in our multi-million-dollar studio upstairs and going out on the street to do remote, interviews with people, as well as working in the control room to, produce an episode of the broadcast and to do all the things about, cutting away from different angles on the cameras, all that kind of stuff. So you'll learn all the skill sets to be like a professional newsroom worker, if that's something you want to go into. And we also have Radio Newsroom if you want to become like an NPR style radio journalist, where you're getting stories, on deadline, fast-paced stories, but learning how to do that in a really powerful way in a radio format. So getting good, strong audio interviews, audio content for that. And in addition to that, I know a lot of people are very interested in podcasting. Certainly a lot of people listen to a lot of podcasts these days. I know I do. There's a lot of classes in our program for people who want to maybe learn how to do that at a very high level, including a class called Telling True Stories in Sound, which is taught by Daniel Alarcon, a recent MacArthur Genius Grant winner, who's the founder of Radio Ambulante, which is a Latin American podcast that's kind of like This American Life, but he'll teach you how to do that kind of slice of life podcast where you're telling really interesting stories about people or organizations or groups, and doing that in a really engaging way. Or if you're interested in investigative or true crime podcasting, there's a great class called Shoe Leather taught by Joanne Ferrian currently, which is a class where you'll do like a true crime investigative podcast episode where you're going to like learn about a crime that took place, investigate that, and then make an audio story about that. And it's a really great way to learn how to do that because a lot of people are very interested in that genre of podcast for sure. And Joanne works at a very high level in that regard. And certainly people are interested in other kinds of beats. So we have classes like covering climate if you're interested in climate change reporting, covering race, which is taught by Jelani Cobb if you're interested in that kind of beat, covering politics, covering international issues, covering business, pretty much most anything you're interested in terms of topics, you can find a way to report on that in the spring semester. And we also have a lot of great ways to you learn some very specific skills. Like we have a book writing class, which is great for people who want to develop a book proposal and a sample chapter, potentially find agents and learn how to navigate the industry that way. We have classes about learning how to do computational journalism, even if you're not in that dual MS or in the data program. If you want to learn how to do that and come up with some platforms and basic coding skills to do some really interesting work, you can learn how to do that. We have great photojournalism classes if you wanted to learn how to do beautiful kind of photojournalism or very powerful stories in photojournalism lens. Also learning ethical kind of questions about taking people's photographs in a way that's responsible. So a lot of great options in the spring semester to really customize that degree and go into the areas that you find out you're really passionate about throughout the MS curriculum. And here's just a breakdown of how that looks. I know a lot of people have questions about what does it look like actually if I'm studying in the MS program, like, when am I taking this class or that class? So this right now currently is what the schedule would look like for the MS broader program in the full-time format. So reporting, as I mentioned, starts the program for those first 7 weeks or so. And then you'll also be taking the writing module, image and sound, which I mentioned later in the fall semester. So you'll finish reporting and then break into those other areas for about 6-7 weeks. And there's also classes I didn't go into as much depth about. Investigative techniques is a class that everyone in the MS program will take. So we definitely make sure everyone graduates with investigative skills, information requests, interviewing techniques, some data skills, stuff that we feel like every journalist, no matter what beat they might go into, should know how to do, even if you're not in the investigative specialization. So this is just for everybody. So if people sometimes ask, if I'm not in the investigative specialization, will I learn any investigative skills? And the answer is definitely yes. So we feel like that is also a key component of any skill set for a working journalist today. And you'll see also there's a couple other things I didn't talk about: law and ethics and history essentials and business essentials. These are spread out in the fall and spring semesters, and these give people a good grounding in the industry that they're going to want to work in. So the ethical questions, legal questions, not just US based, but also kind of global, international perspectives on that, history of journalism, business of journalism, and learning about how the business is changing for journalists and journalism outlets, in terms of digitization, different types of subscription models, different types of local news models. So learning a lot about how the actual business of news is working these days too. And another thing I didn't talk about yet is this master's project, which you see is also in the fall, January, and then the spring semester. And that's a project that every person in an MS program, no matter your track, no matter your interest, will be doing. And that's a project you will develop in terms of an idea you want to pursue as a ambitious reported story. Usually it's around 5,000 words if you're doing it as a written story. You also have the option, if you have audio training, if you've taken the audio class in the fall, to do a podcast story as well, if that's of interest. We don't have a video option for a master's project, but we have a way to integrate some multimedia or some video or some photography with text if you're interested in doing something a bit visual too for your master's project. But for the most part, it's written, and it's really on any kind of topic if you're in the broader MS program that interests you. So it could be a very hard-hitting story that you're looking at, a really important social issue or political issue, or some corruption that you want to uncover, or some wrongdoing. It could also be more of a profile of an artist. It could be about a sports team. It could be about an arts organization. It could be about a new business that's doing something really interesting or has has a new product you want to really explore. It could be a lot of different things. So the nice thing is it's pretty open-ended as long as it's journalism focused in terms of your techniques. You're interviewing people, you're doing the kind of work a journalist would do. So if you're approaching it in that way, it should be something you might be able to do as a project here. And generally we say it's a project you should do that's based in New York or around the tri-state area, so you can go back and forth and do that reporting on the ground. So you're not, having to, travel really far and then find out your source didn't show up, or have a problem where the source doesn't want to talk, but you spend a lot of time, traveling around the country or around the world. So we feel like it's best practice to have it definitely more local, and definitely New York City as a huge global city is a great way to find all sorts of stories to report on. And you'll be assigned basically a mentor or an advisor really to work on that story basically in the middle of your fall semester. So you'll get assigned an advisor, and you'll work with them to really pinpoint the story, winnow it down to what you really want to report on, figure out the sources, the reporting plan, the way you want to go about this, make sure that they're on board with that, make sure there's no problems you might run into. And once you kind of get going, you'll start to do some kind of initial reporting in the fall. Like currently a lot of our students are doing that right now. And then in the spring, in the January break between semesters, a lot of people will do a good bulk of reporting after the holidays. And then they'll continue to work on it in the spring and work on drafts of that with their advisor, making sure it's, realizing its full potential, filling in some gaps, adding some things, taking out some things sometimes, and getting a really great, well-crafted story, as your final product by the time you finish the master's project, which is about halfway through the spring semester. So you won't be living with that all the way through your degree, but you'll be able to kind of finish that, turn that in, and then focus on finishing your 15-week seminar course, as I mentioned, before you graduate in May in the broader MS. So that's the broader MS. And now I will just briefly talk about our specialized programs. I should also say, before I go into that, the part-time curriculum for people who are interested in that basically breaks down, instead of those 2 semesters, it's 5 semesters. And basically it's a fall and spring semester your first year, a summer semester in the middle, and then again, another fall and spring semester your second year for the part-time. Again, this is for people who are US citizens, permanent residents, or have a visa that has work authorization in the US. And basically you do the reporting, written word, all these key elements, all the same elements I went over, but they're spread out. So you're doing reporting, written word in the fall. That one of the seminar and production classes your first spring. You're working on your master's project in the summer between courses, between the semesters, and doing some journalism essential classes in the summer as well. And the fall semester, you'd be doing the image and sound class, investigative techniques, some more of the critical issues classes in the fall, and then you do your final seminar and production class in the spring, and then you graduate with your MS, but it's in the part-time program, it takes those 5 semesters to complete that. And then this is the, I'm not going to go into all of the detail. I know there's a lot to look at here, but this is the MS Stabile Investigative Curriculum. So I mentioned the Stabile program, again, is for people who want to really focus on investigative journalism as their path. And so they're going to do a lot of key skill building in investigative journalism, as well as the essential things that all our MS programs entail. So as you see, a lot of things are similar. Reporting module, writing module, image and sound, all of that is still the same if you're in the investigative program, but you also have another longer investigative techniques class that you're going to have in the fall. So it's a bit more intensive, and you're learning more deep investigative skills in the fall. And you're also doing the investigative master's project. So as we called it in the broader program master's project, because you're in the investigative track, you're going to be definitely doing an investigative master's project. So we'll have to be doing investigative techniques to do that story. So it's going to be uncovering wrongdoing or exposing something about corruption or some sort of malfeasance or negligence in an organization, but you're going to be doing it definitely in that kind of mode of journalism for your investigative master's project in the Stabile program. And in the spring, you can see there's also an Stabile investigative seminar, so you'll have that on top of your other obligations for the MS program. So that adds just more focused work and more intensive work in investigative skills throughout the Stabile investigative program. And as you can see, also you have one of these seminar and production classes, which is the same as everyone in the broader MS. So it could be book writing, it could be podcasting, it could be magazine writing, it could be video newsroom. So it's all open-ended. But for people in the investigative track, because you've committed to this particular area of journalism, the other course you'll have in the spring will definitely have to be an investigative class. But you have options amongst those, so you don't have to take one investigative class. This is called investigative class. You'll have maybe like 4 options, including investigating healthcare, usually investigating the failures of the mental health system, covering conflict, and something called investigative project, which is a collaborative kind of investigative story you work on with different classmates. So you'll have some choices still, but you definitely have to do an investigative class as one of those seminar and production classes if you're in that particular program. And then we're going to talk about the documentary program briefly. And so that's similar to the investigative program, is something where, again, you have to commit to really focusing more on documentary skills. And in the fall semester, you see you're doing a class, rather than the image and sound class that other students in the broader MS class will be taking, you take a very specific documentary video class. You don't get to choose audio, you don't get to choose data, you don't get to choose photography. You have to really get into the documentary skill set. So you're going to focus more deeply right away into using cameras and, you know, editing skills to do documentary work. So you get that deep dive training. Otherwise, you're still doing reporting as the program begins, and you're doing writing like everyone else. You're having that documentary skills building right away in the program. And then, similar to investigative, you will be taking a documentary seminar in the spring as one of your 15-week classes. So that will give you one less choice in terms of open-ended classes in the spring, because of course you're going to be really diving into documentary work and learning how to do that at a really high level. And this other class, though, is again open-ended. You could take book writing, magazine writing, podcasting, whatever interests you as this 15-week seminar production class on top of your other documentary obligations. And then different from our other programs I've talked about, in the full-time mode, you have this third semester for the documentary program, and that's where you work on your documentary master's project. So everyone in the documentary program will be doing a documentary as their master's project, as opposed to, you know, a written project, audio project. It definitely is a short documentary, and usually you're partnered with another student in the documentary specialization to work on that. And you'll develop that idea again in the fall, spring, and you'll be doing a lot of the actual filming of that documentary in the spring and the summer. And that'll usually, again, be something, you know, probably more local based in terms of the story that you want to do it for the same reasons. You're going to want to be able to go back and forth and get, you know, material over and over again. So if you have to travel very far, it's going to be hard to do that. But if you can do it in the areas around New York, that's great. And you'll be able to do usually like a 15 to 30-minute documentary as your final master's project, and turn that in at the end of the summer semester, so at the end of August. And a lot of our students have done all sorts of topics, whether it's about, you know, immigrants in the community, about, you know, there's one right now about a militia group that someone followed, you know, over the course of the January 6th insurrection, which was very, you know, disturbing. Was able to get access to that. Really all sorts of topics to do for the documentary, and a lot of students have, you know, gone into great success for that, where they've been able to go be in competition for, say, the Student Academy Awards. We had some finalists this year for that. We had people who won the BAFTA Student Documentary Award recently. So if you want to learn how to do, again, a professional, you know, doc that can gain a lot of interest, this is a great program to do that through the documentary specialization. And then I'll talk briefly about the data program, another 3-semester program. This is a program you apply to separately. It's just kind of a standalone degree from the MS broader program. So if you go on our application, you can choose this as a specific program you want to apply to. And it has some things in common with the MS broader program we went over. It has reporting again as the way you start the program, but you also see in the fall semester, you have more data work that you're already diving into, you know, in the early part of the curriculum. So you're doing foundations of computing, data and databases. You're not taking a writing module that will be kind of all open-ended. You're taking a class in the spring, actually, that's called Writing with Data. So you're going to learn how to, you know, really learn how to take sometimes what looks like pretty dry data, statistics, some numerical content, and find a really good way to tell that story about that data in a way that's engaging, that's creative, that doesn't, you know, that doesn't lose the accuracy, but makes it, you know, engaging for a reader who doesn't, you know, understand, you know, what this percentage of, you know, respondents means, or this, you know, climate information means. So you'll learn how to write really well about that in the program. And then you see there's data computation innovation, data studio, all these things to build your data skills throughout the course of the MS data program. And again, you get one open-ended class, that 15-week seminar and production class that is really open to whatever thing you want to pursue on top of data. You can do that. So data students don't only just do data throughout their time here. If you wanted to change up your skill set and learn how to do radio broadcasting or writing, you know, about something, or covering race or covering politics or whatever, you're able to do that in the spring, like your other classmates in the MS broader program are able to do. So you can definitely not feel like you're only pigeonholing yourself in data skills in that program. And then you have a little bit of a break in May for the data students. Then you have a summer semester that's a bit more heavy with things. You're doing more storytelling with data, more data computation work. And you also will be doing a master's project that will have data as its key reporting source in that program. So Again, you'll be doing a really interesting story. It'll be reported. It'll have, subjects, you're following through it, interesting, narrative to tell, but it's going to have, data as its base. So it could be data about, business or economic issues. It could be about corruption that you're following through, investigating it through, looking at the data, similar to like the Panama Papers or the Pandora Papers recently, or it could be something about climate. It could be about, something like where more forest fires are happening, where more, flooding is happening and things like that. It's pretty open-ended as long as you're using like a big data set and that is as your key source of how you're going to tell the story. And it's a great way to both learn how to make sense of data and collect data, and also to tell then a story about that data in a way that's accurate, but also really interesting. So that's the data journalism program. And as the dual degree, this is just a breakdown. I won't go through this layer by layer, but it's, again, a 2-year program for people who want to go into computer science and journalism. Again, it starts with reporting like everything. So everyone starts going out into the city doing reporting, even if you're planning to build applications for journalists to use in a newsroom in more of a computational sense. You have to learn the ins and outs of reporting, I think, to learn how journalists think. So it's really important that we have that training in there. Even if you're not going to work as a reporter, we feel like you should know how reporters are thinking and doing their work so you can build software or apps that will help them later through this program. And you'll have classes at CEAS, which is the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at Columbia. And you see there's, I think, 9 classes you take over the 2 years in that school as well. And I don't have all the classes in front of me, but some of those include computer graphics. They include machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, spoken language processing, all sorts of things. So you have a lot of options in that department if you're interested in learning more of those high-level computational skills to build applications related to journalism and media. And the master's project you would do in that program is generally building an app or some software that will help people either do reporting or consume reporting in more effective ways. So for instance, we had a couple of recent graduates in a webinar we did about that program a couple of weeks ago who built basically like an app that could look at memes, memes that are circulating on social media and figure out where they're coming from and what kind of the meaning of them is really quickly. So if someone's tracking that, if it's about, say, a political movement or some sort of insurrectionist movement, you can make sense of that through that lens. So they have an app like that they built. So that's just one example of what you can do in the program as a master's project. And we also have with the MS program a dual degree option with other schools. The difference is for that dual degree with computer science, you apply once to both programs. You don't have to apply separately to both schools, and you apply through the School of Engineering if you want to do that dual degree with computer science. But for other schools at Columbia, you would apply separately. So you would apply to our school if you want to do a dual degree and then to the other school. So for instance, there's a dual degree with the the dual degree with the Columbia School of International and Public Affairs, SIPA, which is a dual MS, MIA, and MIA is Master of International Affairs. And basically you'd apply to both schools separately. There's a MSJD with the Columbia Law School. There's a dual MS MBA with the Business School. And there's a dual MS and an MA in Religion with the Department of Religion in the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences here at Columbia. And basically what happens is you would be potentially accepted to both schools, hopefully. And if you were, then you would work with both schools to kind of negotiate how you would do the programs. Either you would start with us and then go to the other school. You wouldn't take classes at the same time in both schools in those programs. So you'd either start with their school and then come to our school for the next year, or start with our school and then go to that school for the following years you're in the program. And some of the credits from our curriculum would count towards some of the required credits for that program. So it would shave off some of the requirements in terms of credits for the other degree from the classes you take with us. And that's how that works. And basically, if you're applying for scholarship from our school, you would apply for scholarship separately to us and then to that other school as well, if you're looking for scholarship or financial aid from both programs. So that's how that would work. So we kind of operate slightly separately, but we'll work together to make sure that each student in that dual program will coordinate things so their credits will be accounted for between the two programs. And now we'll talk about the Master of Arts, which I know, as I was saying, is a very interchangeable kind of degree in many people's minds. Master of Science, Master of Arts. I know a lot of schools in the US have one or the other, and some journalism schools in the US have only a Master of Arts in journalism, and some only have a Master of Science. We have both, which I know makes it slightly confusing for people. So the way I like to think of it is for the Master of Science program, the Master of Science program is, again, as I said, kind of an essential skill building degree for people with a lot of different backgrounds. They don't necessarily have to have done a lot of journalism journalism already, but it's for people who want to gain the fundamental skills to be professional journalists and also to customize their skill set and learn more about different areas of journalism that they want to go into. So it could be audio, visual, writing, book writing, whatever it is. That's the MS program. And then the MA program is for people who have done professional journalism already or have professional skills in journalism. And that means that you already know how to do essential reporting, multi-source reporting, as I was saying, reporting and finding sources on deadline without having a lot of help for that, because the MA program will begin in a way that assumes you know how to do that. You're not going to get training in how to go out into the city and do reporting. You're not going to have a lot of opportunities to learn about other multimedia aspects of journalism either. So if you're interested in learning more about podcasting or video journalism or broadcast or data journalism, then the MS program is the best place, because the MA is very centered on gaining stronger subject area reporting skills. So going deep into an area of journalism, but not going broadly out and learning a lot of different skill sets in different areas of journalism. But for people interested in the MA, there are the 4 concentrations I had mentioned earlier: the arts and culture concentration, business and economics concentration, politics concentration, and the science concentration. And these are the faculty members currently teaching those concentrations. I'll just outline them briefly. So arts and culture is taught by professors Elisa Solomon and David Haydu. Politics is taught by professors Alexander Stilla and Nicholas Lemon. Business and economics, the core member right now is Winnie O'Kelly. And science has 2 professors, Marguerite Holloway and Jonathan Wiener. And usually for the people, for the programs with 2 people, those programs, one semester, the fall semester will be taught by one of those faculty members, and the spring semester will be taught by the other. That's traditionally how we have it done. So you get different types of insights and experience from each professor, and they'll help you really take your level, your work in journalism to the next level in both spring and fall, but they'll have their own techniques and own expertise, but it'll really help you write and report much more deeply in whatever area they're experts in amongst these 4 concentrations. And just to break down how it looks like for a fall and spring semester for the Master of Arts, it's only available again in a full-time program format, so fall and spring semester for MA. So you're going to have a concentration seminar. So that's one of those 4 concentrations I mentioned: arts and culture, business, politics, or science. So you'll have that core seminar, and that will meet usually twice a week in the fall and in the spring. And that's something that will kind of stay stable throughout the course of your 2 semesters here. You also have a class in the fall called MA Essentials, which is for all MA people, no matter what concentration they're in, where they're going to learn a lot of core investigative skills from some high-level journalists who are often working at places like ProPublica or the Wall Street Journal or at Fortune. And they'll come in and they'll help you learn how to do some more interesting investigative analysis that will help you in your reporting potentially, no matter what you're doing in the future. There's also a class called Evidence and Inference in the fall, which is taught traditionally by Nicholas Lemon, who was our former dean of the school and teaches in the politics concentration, but teaches all the MA students about ways to ask more interesting questions when you're reporting, and to test your hypotheses more, and thinking about different kind of ways to look at maybe some studies or surveys that might be the source of your reporting, whether it's medical information, financial information, political surveys, and to ask some deeper questions about what you're looking at, and maybe to question some of that stuff. So you're not just taking it, without any incredulity. So you're being skeptical, asking questions, and making sure your reporting is really deep and really, rigorous when you're reporting on different topics. And another cool thing about the MA program is that you get to take what we call subject area courses, which are courses taught outside of the journalism school. You can take 3 of those over the course of the MA program, and those can be in departments that would be pertinent to your area of study. So for instance, if you're in science, you could take classes in climate science, you could take classes in anthropology or history of science, or in the International and Public Affairs School about maybe climate and international security or international relations, whatever you want to learn more about. You get the expertise of other faculty around Columbia. It's a world-class university, so you can take classes at the graduate level that will help you understand some of the things in your subject area better, and use some of that information potentially in your reporting while you're a student, and also when you graduate, you might think back on stuff you've learned in those courses that will be really helpful. And basically, you take 1 of those courses in the fall and 2 in the spring. So you get the chance to take 3 classes again outside the journalism school, which is a great opportunity to take advantage of all the resources at Columbia University. And you'll be doing something called a master's thesis, which is a longer version of the master's project I talked about earlier in the MA. And that's a program you'll develop, that's a project you'll develop in the fall It'll be usually about 8,000 words, so longer than the master's project, 8,000 word story. And you will develop that similarly. You'll get a mentor who will help you, develop it in the fall. Think of the kind of, people you need to talk to, the kinds of sources, areas you need to visit. And you'll work on that in the winter break, and then also work on it in the spring and complete that usually in April and turn that in. And that's a project, again, that will be in your area of subject. So if you're doing, business, you'll do a business or economics related story. If you're in arts and culture, it'll be some sort of arts and cultural related story. Pretty big tent again, like it doesn't have to be exactly one specific thing, but as long as it's in the realm of that beat, you can do a story about that. And the MA program, because it's for people with more experience, they are oftentimes given the opportunity to go and travel, potentially if it's possible with restrictions, easing up, either domestically or around the world. So this is a program, if you wanted to go far flung and do something really deep and ambitious as your story, you can do that and potentially go, to some area of the US or again around the world to really report on something at the depth that you might see in a story in the Atlantic or the New Yorker or the New York Times Magazine or places like that. So it's a chance to really go deep and have a really strong, story coming out of the program that you could potentially publish or use in your portfolio to show what you're capable of. So it's a great way to push yourself to do some really high level work in journalism in the MA program. And briefly, the PhD program, as I mentioned, is for people who want to go into academic careers. It's a, definitely an academic degree. It does not offer skill building courses like I talked about. You're not doing audio, podcasting, data work. You're not learning how to make a documentary. You are really going into doing academic research and writing. And it's a great program if you want to. We have some core faculty members. They're historians or sociologists, really, and they will help you, develop a dissertation, really, which will be about some issue related to the media, either in a historical or kind of social science related context. And it's a great way to get placed at potentially an academic job in the U.S. or globally. Usually, we take about 4 students per year into that program, so it's very tight knit. It's a very small program. You get a lot of mentorship in it, and generally it takes around, like I'd say, 6 to 8 years to complete. So it's a long program. It's an investment of time and energy for sure. But if for people who want to pursue an academic path, it's a great way to do that. And at this point, I'm going to open up the chat. And I will let you ask some questions about any of the programs. We'll try to take as many questions as I can. You can just address them to me in the chat. I'm going to turn the chat on 1 second. And then you can write to me in a second here. Here we go. Great. So if you have any questions about the programs I can clarify, you can write to me now, and it can take a few minutes before I chat briefly about the application. Any questions there? Question about remote learning. There is no remote instruction for any of these programs I went over. So these are all programs that if you want to be potentially in the program, you should expect to be in New York City for those. We teach in person. The reporting is done in person in the city. So there is no remote learning currently available for our master's programs or for the PhD program. This is more of an application question about documentary. If you're interested in applying to the documentary program, you don't necessarily have to have done a documentary already. If you have one, it's certainly good if you include that in your application. But I would say that it's a program that if you make a good case in your essays about why you want to do documentary, that's fine. We look for people with that curiosity and that commitment to wanting to do that kind of medium of storytelling. But if you haven't done documentary formally yet, it's fine to apply to the doc program if that's what you want to get into. A question about the class sizes. That's a good question for the MS program and the MA program. Really, most classes I went over, the reporting class, the writing class, image and sound, the seminar and production classes are generally no more than 15 students per section. So it's a very collaborative workshop type environment. So you're going to feel like you're going to get a lot of feedback from your classmates and from your faculty member. The only exceptions are those business and law and ethics overview classes, which are sometimes maybe 30 to 40 students, but those are taught in more of a lecture / conversational format. But everything else is more like a seminar workshop that you'll be encountering. An MA program is very similar to all the classes, except for those bigger evidence and inference classes, and MA Essentials will all be around like 15 or fewer students. So a very collaborative workshop environment for your getting a lot of feedback on your work. A question about the MS program and the MA, a question about whether in the MS program you're able to take classes outside of the journalism school. The answer is no. The MS program is a great program that gives you great journalism training in all sorts of realms, but it's all going to be with faculty and courses in the journalism school. The MA program is the only course of study that has that opportunity to go and study in other departments here. And a question here about the application. I'll get into the application questions in a minute. And then let's see, go through here. This is more of a question about applications, again, about length or whether you can put a research paper in as a sample. So let's talk about the application too, since we're at it. And I actually have to wrap up at 1 today. So if you have more questions, I'll be able to answer those at apply.journalism@columbia.edu later. I'll put that in there. But for the next 10 minutes, I'll try to address all those. So for the if you've done like non-journalism writing before and you're applying to the MS, it's certainly fine to put in an essay or a research paper that you're proud of or an excerpt of that, if you feel that really shows off your writing or your analytical skills really well. So you're very welcome to do that. So as long as it shows, is something you think you're very proud of as a piece of writing and analysis. For the MS program, that's okay. For the MA program, since it's a program that expects you to have already done professional level journalism, we ask for all the samples to be journalistic and published work for the MA program, but MS is not required. And then in terms of when decisions are done, I should mention the deadlines. That's a good reason to mention all of this. So for the deadlines for submitting applications for the MS programs, all the ones I mentioned, is December 15th. So just a few weeks away now for submitting all the materials, application fee, all of that. And then for the MA program, it's January 6th. So there's a few more weeks to complete an MA application. And if you're applying for the dual degree with the computer science, that's due on January 15th. And that application is due through the engineering school website, not through ours. Those are the deadlines for those. And the MS programs, all of that, again, your essays are due, all of your resume, your work samples, all that should be submitted by no later than December 15th. If you have recommendation letters that are coming in a little later, that's okay. That can come in no later than January 10th from those recommenders you've chosen. So that's how that'll work, but we ask that everything on your end be submitted by December 15th. And decisions come out. I got a question about that. Decisions will be out for everybody around mid-March. So for all the programs I mentioned, you'll learn if what our admission decision is, and if you are somebody who has been admitted, and if you've submitted an application for scholarship, which will open later, we'll know about your kind of financial aid package as well around that same time. And a question about average age for programs, I would say there's not a typical age group exactly in either program. We have definitely people in the MS program who are coming straight out of college. We have people who have maybe been working a few years and come to our MS program maybe in their mid or late 20s. We have people in their 30s. We have people later in life who are changing careers. So people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s in the MS program. So I'd say maybe the median age is probably in the mid to late 20s, but certainly people from all age groups are welcome and have been a part of the MS community. MA similar, we do have some people who do come into it from undergrad right away because they've done a lot of high level journalism already by the time they're graduating from college. I'd say that's more skewing towards the late 20s to kind of early 30s for the MA. But we also have people again who are coming maybe later in life too, because they've been working as journalists, but want to come back to learn more in their 40s or 50s or 60s as well. So I'd say there's no disadvantage in terms of age, either young people who are younger than maybe they think they should be or older. There's no reason to be concerned about that in terms of being admitted or being a part of the community here. It's a very diverse community in terms of many respects, but age is part of that as well. Cool, I'm just going down here. In terms of people who want to concentrate in different things in the journalism school. So if you're interested in, like, as I was saying, if you're interested in like learning about different things in journalism, like audio and magazine writing, or writing about religion and doing TV news broadcasting, the MS Broader program is the best way to do that. You don't have to, if you're applying to the broader MS program, commit to any path right away. You can definitely write in your essays when you're applying that you want to do X or Y type of journalism. That's great, and you can definitely do that here, but it doesn't necessarily commit you to that. So you can definitely change course if you want to in the broader MS and pursue multiple areas of interest. Some people come out with a very varied skill set from the MS program. They've done some really great audio work, some great video work, and some great written work, or they might have a really strong, portfolio in one area. They take, audio one, they take podcasting class and they take another audio class and they do an audio master's project, and they show they're really, you know, just amazing audio journalists, and that's exactly what they want to do. Either path is really great. So I think you can have a varied skill set and a more deep specialized skill set in the MS. It really is up to anybody, and you don't have to commit to a certain path when you apply or even when you come into the program in that way. And then for scholarship, I'll mention again that scholarship application will open usually on December 1st. We'll email everybody when it's open, and that's something you can apply for later. It won't be due on December 15th. You'll have usually until about mid-January. We'll give you the deadline for that. And for people applying to any of our master's programs and want to be considered for scholarship, all you have to do is to fill out and submit that scholarship app. And then if you are admitted to our programs, you will be potentially in contention for all these different endowed scholarships we have available. The only way we can award those scholarships is if you submit the scholarship app, though, because that gives us information we can use to match admitted students with those scholarship opportunities. So that's the best way to do that. And certainly we have people every year who have been admitted to our school and forget to do the scholarship app. And unfortunately, we can't reconsider people for scholarship if they've been admitted, but they haven't, by the time we have the deadline, submitted that scholarship application, which is usually in mid to late January. And then a question about the MA program. If you're interested in applying to the MA and you're not sure if you're totally the best fit, because maybe you've done a couple years of experience, you're able to check a box in the MA application that says, if our admissions committee feels like you're a better fit for the MS program, I could be admitted to that. So if you agree to that, you can mark that box. And that way, if our committee feels like you would be better suited for the broader curriculum of the MS, you could just be admitted to that. You don't have to apply to an MA program and the MS program separately. Similar to the data program or any of our specialized programs, it's possible if you're worried that if you apply to a specialized program and the committee feels like you're not the best suited for that, you'll just not be admitted at all. The nice thing is like if they feel like you are a better suited person for the broader curriculum, you might just be admitted to the broader MS without having to apply to separate programs that way. So it's a good way to cover both things at the same time by just applying to the specialized program. Definitely don't apply to both programs if you're just thinking about that right now. You can just apply to the one you really want to get into. And if for whatever reason we feel like you're a better suited person for the broader MS, we'll admit you to that. Unfortunately, I have to run to another meeting. And I know I didn't get into the application in the nitty-gritty detail that I had expected. So I'll probably have another session I'll schedule later, maybe in the week after Thanksgiving about that. But you're welcome to write to me with any questions or my colleagues. I'll put the apply.journalism email here. And me or my colleagues will be happy to answer questions that I didn't get to. I saw there's a lot that just came in. And we will be able to follow up with you in the coming days about that too. I hope this was an informative session for everybody. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. And then definitely we'll have more chances to clarify some of this in the coming weeks too. So look out for some more webinars about the application process too, where I can clarify some more of the key things about the application. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend and take care. Bye now.